From First Paw Media, sponsored by Dream Chaser Leadership in Anchorage, Alaska, this is the Peak Experience Podcast. Here we talk about leadership, team building, strategic management, and organizational development. Visit our website, peakexp.org. Now, here are your hosts, Robert and Michelle Forto.
When most people hear a success story, they focus on the finish line. They see the achievement, the result, the outcome. What they rarely see is what happens after the celebration. Because the true measure of success is not whether something worked once. The true measure is whether it continues to work when nobody is watching. More than a decade ago, Danny and Gunnar began a journey together. Today, we're going to talk about what happened next. Because this story was never about training a service dog. It was about building a partnership that could change a life. Welcome back to The Journey, Leadership Through Partnership, the Danny and Gunnar story. Over the course of this series, we have followed Danny's journey from a veteran searching for a way forward after military service to a handler building a meaningful partnership with his service dog, Gunnar. We have explored the challenges that brought him to Alaska Dog Works, the foundations established during training, and the ways trust, consistency, and structure help create a team capable of performing in the real world. Today, we arrive at the final chapter of the story, and perhaps the most important one. When people ask whether a service dog program is successful, they often focus on the training itself. They ask whether the dog passed certification, whether the required tasks were mastered, or whether the team completed the program. Those milestones are important, but they are not the ultimate measure of success. The real question is much simpler. What happened after the training was complete? Did the partnership improve the handler's life? Did it provide the support, confidence, and independence that the team set out to achieve in the first place? For Danny, those questions mattered far more than any certificate hanging on a wall. Let's talk about the difference between completion and success. One of the lessons we learned through Danny and Gunnar is that completion and success are not the same thing. Completion is a milestone. Success is what happens after the milestone has passed. Anyone can celebrate the end of a program, but the true value of the work is revealed in the months and years that follow. As Danny and Gunnar moved beyond formal training, the partnership became part of everyday life. The routines they had built during training were no longer exercises. They were simply part of how they navigated the world together. The trust that had been developed through hundreds of repetitions was no longer something they thought about consciously. It had become part of the relationship itself. That is what we hope every client experiences. We are not simply training dogs to perform tasks. We are helping people build partnerships that become integrated into their daily lives. The goal is not a perfect dog. The goal is a reliable teammate that can provide meaningful support where it matters the most. What independence really looks like. People often talk about independence as if it is a destination that can be reached and permanently achieved. Independence is often built through confidence, and confidence is built through experience. Every time Danny and Gunnar successfully navigated a challenging situation, they added another piece to that foundation. For someone dealing with PTSD, confidence is not always measured by dramatic moments. Sometimes it is measured by the ability to enter a crowded environment without feeling overwhelmed. Sometimes it is measured by the willingness to participate in activities that once felt difficult or intimidating. Sometimes it is measured simply by knowing what support is and that it's available when needed. Over time, those experiences begin to compound. The partnership becomes a source of stability. The uncertainty that once dominated everyday decisions begins to lose its grip. What emerges is not just a trained service dog team, but a person who feels more capable of engaging with the world around them. That is why we often say that service dogs are about much more than the tasks they perform. The tasks matter, but the greater impact often comes from the confidence and freedom that those tasks make possible. Here's what Danny and Gunnar taught us. As much as Danny and Gunnar benefited from the program, they also taught us lessons that continue to influence our work today. At the time, they were simply one veteran and one dog participating in a new partnership with the Elks Lodge. Looking back now, it's easy to see how important that relationship became. They reinforced our belief that owner-trained service dogs can be incredibly successful when the handler is fully engaged in the process. They demonstrated the importance of coaching accountability and long-term support. Most importantly, they showed us that sustainable success comes from building systems rather than chasing quick fixes. The lessons learned from their journey helped shape the program that Alaska Dogworks continues to offer today. Every veteran, every handler, and every service dog team that followed benefited from the experience gained during those early years. We're going to take a short break here, and we will be right back.
Leadership is not learned in comfort. It is forged through challenge, uncertainty, and action. It's time for another memorable moment in leadership history, sponsored by Dream Chaser Leadership and Peak Experience, providing experiential leadership development, strategic coaching, and team building programs designed for real-world results.
Steve Jobs returns to Apple. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company was bloated and drifting. He simplified products, sharpened focus, and said no to distractions. This week's lesson: growth often begins with subtraction. Today's mantra: eliminate to elevate. Okay, we are back. The impact of the Elks Lodge partnership. When Danny entered the program, the partnership with the Elks Lodge was just beginning. We knew there was a need for veteran-focused service dog training and that there were individuals seeking solutions to help them regain confidence and independence. What we could not fully appreciate at the time was how significant that partnership would become. Danny and Gunnar became the first chapter in a much larger story. Their success demonstrated what was possible when structure, support, and accountability were combined with commitment and effort. They provided proof that the model could work and that owner-trained service dog teams could achieve meaningful outcomes. Over the years, that partnership expanded and evolved, serving additional veterans and creating opportunities that might not have existed otherwise. Looking back, Danny and Gunnar helped establish the foundation upon which so much of the program was built. How this story shaped our leadership philosophy. One of the unexpected outcomes of this journey was the realization that the lessons emerging from service dog training were not limited to service dog training. As we worked with more handlers, more teams, and more organizations, the same patterns continued to appear. Strong partnerships were built on trust. Reliable performance depended on clarity and consistency. Accountability mattered. Structure mattered. The systems that produced successful service dog teams were remarkably similar to the systems that produce successful teams and organizations. Those observations eventually became part of the foundation for the work we do through Peak Experience. We did not set out to create leadership lessons from service dog training. Instead, the lessons revealed themselves over time. The more we paid attention, the more obvious the connections became. Whether someone is leading a service dog team, a business, or a group of people working toward a common goal, the underlying principles remain remarkably similar. Success depends on trust. It depends on consistency. It depends on a commitment to building systems that work when conditions become difficult. And here's what partnership really looks like. When people hear the word partnership, they often imagine cooperation or teamwork. While those ideas are certainly part of it, true partnership runs deeper. Partnership is built through shared experiences. It develops through challenges, setbacks, victories, and growth. It requires trust, and trust takes time to earn. Danny and Gunnar did not become a successful team because of a single training session or a breakthrough moment. Their success was the result of hundreds of small moments accumulated over months and years. Every routine, every challenge, and every success contributed to something larger than either of them could have created alone. This is what partnership looks like. It is not a moment. It is a process. It is the gradual construction of something reliable enough to withstand uncertainty and strong enough to support meaningful growth. When Danny first came to Alaska Dog Works more than a decade ago, neither of us knew exactly where the journey would lead. We knew there was work to do. We knew there was hope. We knew there was a possibility that a service dog could make a meaningful difference in his life. What we did not know was how far the impact of that journey would extend. Danny and Gunnar helped launch a program that would go on to serve additional veterans. They helped demonstrate the value of owner-trained service dog teams. They have influenced the way we think about coaching, accountability, and long-term support. And perhaps most unexpectedly, they helped shape the leadership philosophy that now informs our work through Peak Experience. What began as a service dog training program became something much larger. It became a lesson about trust, structure, and commitment. It became a reminder that meaningful change rarely happens overnight and that the strongest partnerships are built through consistent effort over time. More than a decade later, those lessons continue to guide our work. They shape every service dog team we train through Alaska Dog Works and every leadership program we facilitate through Peak Experience. Because in the end, this story was never just about a dog. It was about what becomes possible when people commit to building something that works when it matters most.
From First Paw Media, this is the Peak Experience Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You will find a link in our episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you would give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Our producer is Robert Forto and created by First Paw Media.